What's good, everybody? This is Robo from Allbark back with another college football video, and today I'm giving you my 2023 bowl picks. I've got nothing to recap for you guys this week as it was just title games a couple weeks ago, so let's go ahead and get right into the matchups. First up Saturday morning is the Myrtle Beach Bowl. This one's between Georgia Southern and Ohio. Ohio's had some surprising offensive issues all year and coming to this game down a ton, with starting quarterback Curtis Rourke in the portal, as well as both lead back Sia Bangura and his RB2, and top wideout Miles Cross also in the portal. Georgia Southern's been much more fortunate so far, out nobody a real relevance to this game so far. Georgia Southern's fallen off a cliff in the second half of the year and struggled a lot defensively, but even against a subpar defense, I don't like Ohio's chances of scoring enough to win this game with all that they're missing. Give me Georgia Southern 27-20. Next up is the New Orleans Bowl from Caesars Superdome. It's Jacksonville State and Louisiana with both sides fairly full strength. Louisiana's down a linebacker to the portal, and that's about it for both squads. Rich Rodriguez has gotten it done all year in Jacksonville's first year as an FBS program, and it was rewarded with a bowl game despite the initial ban. They're slightly favored in this one, and I agree with it. I think they've shown enough to be the better ball club this season, and they've had a lot of success on the ground, ranking 5th in the country in yards per game. This could be a great game, though, as Louisiana is a solid group on both sides of the ball, but like I said, I'm leaning towards Jacksonville State here, 31-27. In the afternoon, we have the Cure Bowl from Orlando, Florida, between Miami, Ohio, and Appalachian State. This game's a bit interesting as App State's leading rushers in the transfer portal, and on the Miami side, starting quarterback Avion Smith is also in the portal. He struggled quite a bit up until the MAC championship game, but the real star of the show is their defense. They've been phenomenal and found a way to shut down Toledo's offensive attack. App State's a tough challenge for them, but I'm thinking this game's fairly low scoring, and think because of App State's defensive issues lately, Miami may find a way to put up some points regardless, despite turning at QB3 for this game. I think App State comes out victorious, but the defense is good enough to keep it tight. I'm going to go with a 24-20 final. Continuing the Saturday slate, we've got the New Mexico Bowl between New Mexico State and Fresno State. Diego Pavia was banged up in the Conference USA title game, which really ended their chances in that one against a great Liberty team. But he should be good to go for this one. Neither team has many portal entrants prior to this one besides New Mexico State's wide receiver 2. I'm actually a believer in Mikey Keene for Fresno State as he was impressive early on, but he's been pretty inconsistent to end the season as they've dropped 3 straight games, including 2 to really subpar opponents. New Mexico State should be relying on Pavia to play his game and get the job done. I'm going to take them to win this game 27-21. Saturday night, we head to SoFi Stadium for the LA Bowl between UCLA and Boise State. Both teams have taken some big hits to opt-outs here, starting with Boise State's quarterback Taylon Green, who's transferred to Arkansas, and stud receiver Eric McAllister is also in the portal. Backup quarterback Maddox Madison is out for the year, so Boise will turn to a third stringer for this game. But luckily for him, they've been a strong rushing attack all year with Ashton Jeanty, and UCLA's out a few defensive guys, including star edge rusher Laiatu Latu. UCLA's had some ugly games offensively, and honestly, I'm not sure how excited they are to be here with no travel experience and a fairly weak bowl game for them, and they've got the Big Ten to look forward to next year. I honestly like Boise's chances to take this one, but there's a lot of variance with their situation, and UCLA definitely has a talent advantage, so I've got UCLA in a tight one, 24-23. The last game Saturday night is the Independence Bowl from Shreveport, Louisiana between Cal and Texas Tech. 2 teams with strong offenses and some defensive issues, and to make it worse, Cal will be without their leading tackler and another solid corner who were in the portal. Texas Tech will be without an offensive tackle, but luckily both star running backs, Cal's Jaden Ott and Tech's Taj Brooks, are in for this game. That should be a really exciting game to watch, and we know Cal can score, and Baron Morton's looked pretty good this year for Tech outside of the Texas game, when the Longhorns were really just out for blood. I think this one's fairly high scoring, but Texas Tech prevails late, 34-30 with the final score. Only one game on Monday, but it's the famous Toastery Bowl with Western Kentucky taking on Old Dominion. Old Dominion's going to be without one of their top safeties for this one, as well as potentially their leading tackler who's questionable with an injury. Western Kentucky may have got it a bit rougher though, as they've got 3 offensive linemen and some defensive guys in the portal and an already bad defense. And there's no word on if Austin Reed will play or not yet, but his top target, Malachi Corley, will. As for motivation factors, it's been a pretty rough season compared to Western Kentucky's hopes, and Old Dominion fought really hard to be here, winning 2 tough games to end the season with 6 wins for this invite. The Hilltoppers have been pretty good in bowl season, but I think Old Dominion's in a good spot to take this one from them. Give me Old Dominion 31-21. Tuesday is the Frisco Bowl between UTSA and Marshall. Not many guys are missing this game for UTSA besides a huge one, and American Conference Defensive Player of the Year Trey Moore hitting the portal. But Marshall could have a tough time in this game as their starting quarterback Cam Fancher is opting out, as well as his wide receiver 2 and starting center, who's their best offensive lineman by far. The starter for Marshall will be Cole Pennington, who ended the season with 0 touchdowns and 6 picks, and this offense has already had some rough games this year. I think they'll score a bit though as a result of how quickly UTSA can move the ball, and that could lead to a higher scoring game with some tired defenses. But I don't think this one will be too close. Frank Harris is a great quarterback and very experienced, and he should command a strong offensive performance. I like UTSA 38-24. Thursday night is the Boca Raton Bowl between South Florida and Syracuse. Cuse enters this game with an interim coaching staff that's coached a couple games at this point, but not all will remain on staff after this one, as former Georgia defensive back coach Fran Brown will be bringing in some new guys onto his staff, which means some guys may be looking elsewhere for work. Surprisingly, though, Syracuse is only missing an edge rusher to the portal for this game, and the exact same goes for South Florida, who will be making their first bowl appearance since 2018 in this game. This should be a solid game score-wise, as South Florida will be more than motivated to play and should be able to score in this Cuse defense, but they've had some issues getting stops this season against just about anyone. I'm leaning towards a more motivated South Florida team taking this one as an underdog and a pretty high-scoring game down to the wire, 35-34. Friday evening, we got the Gasparilla Bowl from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, where we'll see John Reese Plumlee and UCF take on Haynes King and Georgia Tech. UCF should be able to run the ball quite a bit in this one, as RJ Harvey's been outstanding and Plumlee's got some legs himself. Georgia Tech has really struggled to defend the run all year, ranking 3rd to last in the entire country, and to add on will be without a couple key defenders to the portal. UCF is out a corner and some defensive depth guys himself, and also has a rough go on defense, which can set up for another high-scoring matchup. Two solid and fun quarterbacks coming off solid seasons should make for a great game. I like UCF to come out on top in a nail-biter, 34-31 in their home state. Back to a loaded Saturday slate on the 23rd, starting at noon with the Birmingham Bowl with Troy taking on Duke. Both teams will be coached by interim staffs for this game, as Mike Elko and the previous interim are heading to Texas A&M, and Troy coach John Sumrall will be the next head man at Tulane. Player-wise, Duke quarterback Riley Leonard's off to Notre Dame, as well as top pass rusher R.J. Oben, and they've got much more in the portal, including their RB1 Jordan Waters, and all-ACC defensive tackle, and a few other defensive starters. And top offensive lineman Graham Barton is off to the NFL and will not play in this one either. Grayson Loftus has not been horrible, though, for Duke this year, and can keep him in this one at quarterback. But Troy has looked incredible in recent weeks and can lean on a strong defense. They'll be without a great edge rusher for this one, but they have more than enough to still perform. I think Troy's got a pretty solid edge across the board, and they should take this one 27-17. Also at noon is the Camellia Bowl between Arkansas State and Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois had to win both of their last 2 games this year to get here, and obviously they did so, and will take on a pretty strong Red Wolves offensive attack that put up 77 points on Texas State in mid-November before dropping their finale to Marshall. NIU will be without their wide receiver 1, Trayvon Rudolph, who entered the transfer portal, along with their starting center and a solid DB as well. For Arkansas State, linebacker Javante Mackey is their biggest loss of the portal, as he was their second leading tackler. Games like these are always tough to read, as motivation-wise for both schools are going to want to win this one to finish with a positive record on the year at 6-6. But I lean towards NIU, as they've got a significant statistical advantage defensively, so give me the Huskies 28-24. Next up is the Armed Forces Bowl with James Madison and their first bowl game taking on Air Force. Air Force has been pretty solid in bowl games as a team, just like other service academies, sitting on a 4-game win streak. James Madison has to be ecstatic to be here, as they originally were denied postseason play by the NCAA. But Coach Kurt Cignetti left for the Indiana job, so they'll be with an interim staff for this one. Quarterback Jordan McLeod is in the portal, but he will play in this game. We'll see if they have the other portal guys available, including their RB1, starting guard, and a few defensive starters. Air Force is near full strength for this one, though, and despite ending the year with a 4-game losing streak, they looked pretty solid in the last 2 against UNLV and Boise State. So with all the variance on the James Madison opt-out side and their head coaching change, I'm leaning towards the triple option in Air Force in this one, although James Madison is a great team with a great defense. I just like Air Force to continue their run with a nail-biting 24-23 win. Moving on to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, it's Georgia State and Utah State. This should be a fun one, high-scoring game between 2 teams who can move the ball and a Utah State defense that gives up a ton of offense. Georgia State is missing a few key guys, though, including star running back Marcus Carroll, along with their top receiver and corner, all to the portal. But with Darren Granger at the helm up against this type of defense, I think Georgia State should still find success at some point in this game. But Utah State is only down a starting safety for this one and should have a strong day offensively behind Cooper Legas' arm and a strong rushing attack that saw multiple guys over 6 yards of carry on the season. I think both teams will be ready to go on the Boise Blue Turf, and Utah State takes a great one, 34-31. Next up Saturday night is a 68 Ventures Bowl between South Alabama and Eastern Michigan. South Alabama will be without their star receiver Colin Lacey for this game, as he's a strong transfer portal entrant, and starting running back LaDamian Webb is off to the NFL as well. Eastern had to pull off an upset at Buffalo to get to this game, so the Eagles should be fired up to be here, but they'll have a new face under center as quarterback Austin Smith entered the portal and missed this one. EMU is typically good in bowl games, especially under Chris Creighton, and they're a pretty huge underdog here. There's no way I'm trusting a new quarterback to step in and upset a solid South Alabama squad, but with little film to study and some past slip-ups this season for the Jags, I like Eastern to play this one a bit closer than expected, but South Alabama's going to win this one, 31-17. On to the Las Vegas Bowl between Utah and Northwestern. What a year it was for the Cats, with many, including myself, predicting them to be at the bottom of the Big Ten West, and here they are. They'll be down just one offensive lineman, and their opponent Utah has to feel a little less motivated playing in a much less exciting bowl than they're used to after Cam Rising missed the entire year. Quarterback 2 Nate Johnson's played quite a bit this year, but he will not play as he's transferring out. And starting quarterback Bryson Barnes is also in the portal, but he will play in this one. Utah also has some defensive injuries and a corner in the portal as well. I think Utah's the better and more talented team here, but the way Northwestern's played this season, especially against opponents better than them, I could easily see them staying in this game and maybe even upsetting them until the end. I'm taking Utah close, 24-20. The last pre-Christmas bowl is way out west with a Hawaii Bowl between Coastal Carolina and San Jose State. San Jose State actually played here at Hawaii this season and dominated them 35-0. Coastal quarterback Grayson McCall as well as the backup are out, but they've had to play their third string at times this year already. They're also without their number 2 receiver, Jared Brown, and a starting linebacker for this one to the portal. Coastal ended the year with 2 ugly losses, and on the other side, San Jose State ended on fire, missing just a stud offensive tackle in this game and a tight end. I think they can lean on Cordero and the run game to control this one from start to finish. Give me San Jose State 34-21. On to Tuesday the 26th, it's the Quick Lane Bowl from Detroit between Bowling Green and 5-7 Minnesota. They're here due to a lack of eligible teams, so maybe that gives them reason to be excited to win a game they should have some confidence in. Lead back Darius Taylor is likely out for this one as he missed the last several games with an injury, and they'll start a new quarterback as Callie McManus hit the portal. Bowling Green should be up for this game as they have a real shot at an upset here with a poor Minnesota opponent, and they'll be down just a top corner and a backup running back for this game. I think Minnesota may find some success running the ball still, as that's their bread and butter, and they won't want to put too much pressure on the new guy, but I like Minnesota to win the trenches and take this one 24-17. Next is the First Responder Bowl as Texas State takes on Rice. Rice quarterback JT Daniels medically retired, so he won't play in this one, but backup AJ Padgett is experienced and has not been bad. Texas State doesn't have a great defense, and as they've given up a ton of points this season, and Rice has shown they can score even on some solid teams like Tulane and SMU. I think we could see a great amount of scoring in this one with some rough defensive play, but I've got Rice pulling off the upset as Padgett is not bad, and they've had some stronger defense. 31-34 is my final. On to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It's UNLV taking on Kansas. This game's less exciting than it could have been a few weeks ago as UNLV stumbled hard down the stretch, losing at home to San Jose State and at home again in the title game to Boise. They've really been bad defensively in those games, and now they're without Maeva, the starting quarterback, as he's in the portal. The backup has not been good at this point either, and they're taking on a better opponent than their last 2 games, in my opinion, in Kansas. We've seen enough of Jason Bean to know he can get it done at quarterback for the Jayhawks, even with the offensive coordinator off to Penn State. But this is a mismatch game, in my opinion. Give me Kansas 35-20. Wednesday the 27th, we got a few games starting with a Military Bowl between Virginia Tech and Tulane. Tulane coach Willie Fritz is going to Houston, but he and his staff will coach the bowl game. Tulane's going to be down their best receiver, Chris Brazell, in this one, along with a starting tight end, 2 D linemen, and a corner as well to the portal. Virginia Tech is down just a corner and a tight end. Kyron Drones has been the big offensive game changer for Tech, who completely turned their season around after a 2-4 start to get here. And I think Tech may have a big motivational advantage. I don't love the spread being over a touchdown at all, and it's probably a good stay away, but honestly, I don't know if I can trust Tulane's situation up against Virginia Tech's offense that's on fire. Give me the Hokies here, 30-21. Moving on to the Duke's Mayo Bowl, North Carolina will take on West Virginia without Drake May and Tez Walker, as both are sitting out as they head to the NFL. They'll also be without a ton of depth guys in this one, and West Virginia is pretty much full strength. UNC finished the year 1-4 versus FBS teams, and that was with an incredible quarterback talent in Drake May. I think West Virginia has had a solid season, especially considering their expectations coming into it, and I think they'll be excited to be here with a good chance to win this one. There's a ton of question marks around UNC's offense here, but besides the run game, I think West Virginia should score some points. Give me the Mountaineers 31-24. Up next is the Holiday Bowl between Louisville and USC. USC will obviously be without Caleb Williams as well as Marshawn Lloyd, Brendan Rice, and Kalen Bullock all ahead of the draft. They had a disaster season as is and will look to find some breakout players for the future in this game. And for Louisville, they'll be missing a star running back, Jawar Jordan, who declared for the draft. Coach Brown has been pretty solid in bowls at this point, and I think Louisville will have quite a bit of motivation after falling in the ACC title to a really good Florida State defense. They should see all that USC is missing in an extremely weak defense and be ready to attack. But Jawar Jordan is such a difference maker for that offense, and we don't have a word on what Jamari Thrash is doing just yet. I think Louisville wins this game, but USC is probably going to find enough offense with the backups to stay in it. Give me the Cards 31-27. On to the Texas Bowl. It's Texas A&M taking on Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State just got dominated by Texas in the Big 12 Championship, but luckily for them, their opponent has a ton of opt-outs, including star receiver Evan Stewart, starting quarterback Max Johnson to North Carolina, and a bunch of key defenders and offensive linemen. And to top it off, they've got an interim staff in place as well. Mike Gundy has an 11-6 bowl record and should have Oklahoma State ready to go as they aren't missing anyone big yet and have an opportunity to beat a big-name program that's wounded right now to end the season on a strong note. I think the Cowboys feed Ollie Gordon, assuming he plays in this one, and they take it close, 27-23. Moving on to Thursday the 28th, we've got the Fenway Bowl in the morning between Boston College and SMU. Both teams are pretty full strength for this game as the portal entrants are just backups, but SMU will be without their starting quarterback Preston Stone due to injury, but that did not matter as they won the AAC title at Tulane a couple weeks ago. SMU is very legit and they've got some playmakers and a lot of confidence in their backup, and defensively surprised me big time, completely shutting down Tulane's run game and took away several opportunities for Tulane's offense. Boston College has some talent, but with the way SMU's playing right now, I can't step in front of them right now. They've been dominant. I like SMU 35-21. Next is a Pinstripe Bowl from Yankee Stadium between Rutgers and Miami. Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke is off to Wisconsin, and they'll be out starting receiver Colby Young as well. Elite safety duo Cameron Kitchens and James Williams, as well as defensive tackle Leonard Taylor, are all headed to the NFL draft and missing this game. So a ton of key guys missing for this one. Rutgers is out pretty much nobody besides corner Max Melton, as this is a huge game for their program. It's not often Rutgers is in a bowl, nonetheless one they have a chance to win. And I think they'll be super pumped for this one, especially playing close to home, but in a fun environment. Miami will have to play in the freezing cold with a much less motivated team and more question marks. I'm no fan of Gavin Wimsatt, but give me Rutgers to win defensively, 20-17. Later on is Kansas State taking on NC State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. A ton of opt-outs on the Kansas State side as they're without a safety, a corner, an edge defender, and most importantly, quarterback Will Howard, his RB1 Trayshawn Ward, and a star tight end in Ben Sinnott. Cooper Beeb's status for this game is TBD as he's NFL bound, but regardless, NC State has a big advantage down just a defensive lineman. Kansas State is the better team this season, but they've got so much out that they're going to have a tough game on their hands against a pretty solid NC State team that ended the year on a really strong note. I do like backup quarterback Avery Johnson quite a bit for Kansas State, and he's got a ton of rushing ability, but with so much missing against such a good team, I like NC State here 24-21. At night, we've got the Alamo Bowl between Oklahoma and Arizona. The Jackson Arnold era at Oklahoma was officially beginning as starting quarterback Dylan Gabriel is off to Oregon. Oklahoma will also be out some depth guys, but Gabriel's a pretty big loss, although Arnold has a ton of talent. Arizona will be without star left tackle Jordan Morgan as he's off to the NFL draft, but other than that, they are pretty set right now. Arizona's been a huge surprise, especially quarterback Noah Fafita, who may be able to find a ton of success through the air against his Oklahoma defense, as he really has all season after taking over. This will be a fun watch no matter what, but I think Arizona continues their successful season with a big bowl win here, 34-28. On to Friday the 29th, starting at noon, is the Gator Bowl. Clemson and Kentucky will face off, with Clemson coming in as a favorite. It wasn't a great season for Kentucky, but they'll have an opportunity to pick up a huge win here as Clemson will be down a ton, including their top three corners and linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. They're also going to miss safety Andrew Makuba and wide receiver Bo Collins, as well as the defensive tackle on this one. So a ton of defensive question marks heading into this matchup that Kentucky's ground game and playmakers could definitely exploit. Not many opt-outs on the Kentucky side, and I expect them to feed Ray Davis here. Clemson does have a talent edge still, though, and Cade Klubnik has looked better as of late, so I'm going to take them to survive by a field goal, 27-24. Next up is the Sun Bowl. It'll be a super weakened Oregon State team taking on Notre Dame, who's going to be without a ton of talent, including Sam Hartman, Audric Estime, Joe Alt, and several other starters. And the new quarterback will be in a tough spot as his receiver depth is all in the portal. And next year's keys have been handed over to Riley Leonard already. But Oregon State has had it rough as they lost their coach to Michigan State and will be down to quarterback 3, as both DJ and Aiden Childs are gone, along with their star receiver Anthony Gold and elite lineman Taliese Fuaga. This will be Trent Bray's first game as head coach for the Beavers, and depth-wise, I just like Notre Dame to be able to outlast this one, 27-17. Next up is the Liberty Bowl from Memphis, Tennessee. It's Memphis taking on Iowa State with home field advantage at their own stadium. Both teams don't have too many opt-outs. It's Iowa State's just missing an offensive lineman and a backup running back, and Memphis is out 2 starting offensive linemen. Playing at home is a pretty big advantage, but I think that may be factored into the line here just a bit, as Iowa State to me is just a better team this season, especially as of late. Memphis has had serious defensive issues at times, and although they've shown to be a solid team, Iowa State is coming off a huge road win at Kansas State and a well-fought battle against Texas. I think Rocco Beck will have a lot of success in this game for the Cyclones, and their defense will get the stops they need on the road. Give me Iowa State 34-24. Up next is a big one, as it's the Cotton Bowl with Missouri taking on Ohio State. Missouri's a pretty much opt-out free team to this point, and this is a huge game for the program after an incredible season. Ohio State has had a lot of guys into the portal, but mostly all backouts besides starting quarterback Kyle McCord and wide receiver 3 Julian Fleming. But Emeka Egbuka announced he's playing, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is still undecided, as well as Travion Henderson. Those are obviously huge decisions that can sway this game, but it seems they may both play. I think Ohio State's going to come into this game fired up and pissed off after the loss to Michigan, and Devin Brown will get the start looking to show he's ready to be the guy next season. Missouri's a solid pick, but I'm going to go with Ohio State here, 28-23. Moving on to Saturday the 30th, we start with the Peach Bowl. Ole Miss and Penn State will face off with the Rebels near full strength in terms of starters, and Chop Robinson's out for Penn State so far. We're still waiting on decisions from Kalen King and Olu Fashanu for this one, but if they both decide to play, I think Penn State may have a decent shot to win this one. Defensive coordinator Manny Diaz is off to be the head coach at Duke, though, so a bit of a coaching shakeup there, and we could see additional attrition prior to kickoff. Ole Miss has a really strong offense, but Penn State has arguably the nation's best defense behind them, and I think Drew Aller may be able to have some success against the Rebel defense. This one should go down to the wire, but I've got Penn State 27-24. Next up is the Music City Bowl, staying with the SEC and Big Ten theme. It's Auburn taking on Maryland. The final game of Talia Tagovailoa's college career, with both teams near full strength so far, besides Maryland out of tight end Corey Dyches and starting linebacker. Auburn is coming off an absolutely crushing loss to Alabama after giving up a ridiculous 4th and 31 to lose the game. So I'd imagine they're hungry to get that loss off their minds for a bit against a decent Maryland team. I think Auburn will be able to get the stops they need to be able to win this one, and Maryland's defense isn't too much of a challenge, so I like the Tigers to bounce back with a win here, 27-21. Next up is one I'm sure a lot of people are excited for. It's the Orange Bowl between playoff snub Florida State and Georgia, coming off a crushing loss to Alabama that took away their chances for a three-peat. Unfortunately for Florida State, they'll be without Johnny Wilson for this one as he's declared for the draft. It is expected that Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, and Jared Verse may opt out as well. Tate Rodemaker will get the start here as he's back from the concussion. On the Georgia side, no announcements yet, but we may hear soon that any of Brock Bowers, Amarius Mims, Cedric Van Pran, Javon Bullard, and Kamari Lassiter are sitting this one out for the draft. I think regardless of who's in, both teams will be super motivated, but Georgia may have a huge talent advantage, especially on offense, so give me the Bulldogs big, 34-17. Heading out west, we've got the Barstool Arizona Bowl between Toledo and Wyoming. Daquan Finn is out and in the portal for Toledo, which is a crushing blow as he was the big-time playmaking quarterback for that offense. And they may be without their elite corner, Quinion Mitchell, as well. Wyoming is fairly full strength and missing just one starter right now, but regardless, with the Daquan Finn loss for Toledo, I have a tough time seeing them win this game. Wyoming's a solid team, and with a new quarterback at the helm, I think they may struggle to score many points here, but the rest of the team are no slouches. I just think Wyoming has a good shot to control this one, so give me the Cowboys here, 27-20. Kicking off the new year at noon is a ReliaQuest Bowl between Wisconsin and LSU. The big news for this game is obviously the status of Heisman winner Jaden Daniels, as he's still undecided if he'll play or not in this game. But we do know Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas are both practicing in bowl prep right now, so it looks like they may both play. Those guys will obviously affect this line for sure, and on the Wisconsin side, they'll be without star running back Braylon Allen and maybe their top receiver Chimere Dike. Two big losses on an already struggling offense. I don't like their chances in this game unless both Daniels and Neighbors sit out, but even though I still like Nussmeier as a backup, give me LSU 35-20. Moving on to the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, it'll be Liberty taking on Oregon in the biggest spread differential of bowl season right now. Liberty's likely to be near full strength for this game and has an incredible season, going undefeated and dominating the Conference USA title game to get here. Oregon's out a bunch of guys, including Bucky Irving, a starting corner, and they'll likely be out Jordan Burch, Troy Franklin, and their starting center who just declared for the draft. Regardless, though, this is a pretty massive talent gap, and Oregon may be fired up in Bo Nix's last game as a college quarterback after a crushing second loss to Washington. I really like Caden Salter's game for Liberty, but this is just an overwhelming matchup for them, so give me Oregon 41-21. Up next is the final non-playoff matchup, the Fiesta Bowl between Iowa and Tennessee. Another SEC versus Big Ten game in bowl season, and this could be a fun one as Iowa's defense is absolutely legit, but they have absolutely zero ability on offense. Iowa will obviously be out Cooper DeJean for this one, but Tennessee's going to be without 3 defensive players as well. I think with the number of turnover-worthy plays Iowa's defense creates, they can put themselves in position to score and may even get some defensive points, but I have no faith in their offense doing anything at all, really. This should be another low-scoring game. I've got Tennessee winning by just a touchdown, 20-13. On to the college football playoffs, starting with the Rose Bowl game between number 1 Michigan taking on number 4 Alabama. The public is pretty heavily in favor of Alabama here, although it's been creeping a bit closer to the Michigan side as time goes on. Michigan has a big running quarterback in Alex Orji to help them prepare for what Jalen Milroe brings to the table, but obviously nothing's really going to be like the real Milroe. He's got a huge arm and is an absolute tank with the ball, but the Michigan defense has been absolutely elite pretty much all year and should be able to generate some stops and maybe a takeaway or two, which will be huge for the Michigan offense, which has been a bit slept on because they faced 3 top 5 defenses in the last 4 games and haven't been flashy whatsoever outside of that. I think Alabama may come in slightly overconfident after beating Georgia, who honestly played a really poor to their standards game. And I picked Michigan preseason to win it all, so I'm going to stick to that. 24-21 Michigan in what could be the best game of bowl season. The next semifinal is the Sugar Bowl with number 2 Washington taking on number 3 Texas. Texas is firing on all cylinders right now, but an entire month off may cool that down a bit. Xavier Worthy was injured in the Big 12 title game, but I think he'll be back with enough time to rest up and get healthy, which is huge for that offense. Quinn Ewers is absolutely rolling right now, but Washington has flat out found a way every single time and proven their worth of being in these playoffs. I trust Michael Penix in almost every situation possible, and I think even if Texas continues cooking, they'll be able to keep up. I think Odunze will be a big difference maker in this game to help lead Washington to a national championship appearance, so give me the Huskies in an incredible battle, 31-30. On to my national championship game with maybe 2 unpopular picks with Michigan and Washington. Preseason, I thought this was definitely a possible matchup and had both of my Final Four along with Georgia and Alabama. And I managed to get 3 out of 4 right, missing just Texas. But as I mentioned before, Michigan was my title pick to start the year. And although I've said Washington finds a way to win, so does this Michigan team, especially with that defense. I think Michael Penix will get quite a bit through the year and may hang close to 30 or into the 30s in points. But this Michigan team has to be the most motivated of anyone in the country right now with their situation at hand and losing in the playoffs back-to-back seasons. Blake Corum is finally healthy for the playoffs this season, and I haven't seen enough struggle against 3 top 5 defenses to say Michigan won't be able to find success against Washington's defense. I've got the Wolverines winning it all in a 30-27 thriller of a title game. Alright, that's it for my bowl picks. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with my college football playoff picks, but that's just my opinion. I may be a little bit biased in it. But let me know in the comments which games you're most excited to watch this bowl season and any picks you've got as well. Other than that though, thanks for watching this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.